This is one of my favorite days of the year. We're celebrating teachers who have been eagerly awaiting these scores. Some of those have been waiting to learn whether they achieved national board certification. It's really a day for us to celebrate. Because of COVID, we get to do it, as Richard said earlier, twice. Again, late in February. So right now our glass is half full. On this day, we want to celebrate teachers who voluntarily go above and beyond to deliver for their students and for the teaching profession. I have to acknowledge that some teachers who committed to this process didn't see fireworks on their screens. So we all have to be sensitive to that possibility on social media and in our conversations. We know that we're going to hear from elated teachers, but we're also going to hear from some of those who are feeling very disappointed. That being said, I want to reflect on you, network leaders, candidate support providers across the country, as well as the board members who have joined us, fellows, staff members, and other super champions who make this work happen and enable teachers to experience this process in the most positive possible way. We thank you, and we are grateful for the countless hours, the shared blood, sweat, and tears, and today, an incredible amount of shared joy. So now it is my profound privilege to introduce one of the champions of our work. Dr. Mae Jemison's accomplishments are way too numerous to list. She's a doctor, she's an engineer, and she's the first Black woman to travel into space. And Mae sits on our board of directors and is, and always has been, an education champion. I'm grateful for Mae joining us today to give us some remarks. So I'll turn it over to Mae.
I just want to say good morning to, or good afternoon to Peggy and everyone. It's really exciting to be here today. It's really exciting to be included in this day and this celebration. It's important because right now I'm talking to people who represent all the individuals in our society who underpin what we do, past, present, and future, not just as a nation, but really as humanity. And the reason why I'm going there and not just being jovial about it all is because I think it's important for us to recognize how teaching happens and how important it is. Also understanding that education and teaching happens both formally and informally, right? So today we're celebrating formal teaching, but we're doing all of this against the backdrop of what I consider the oldest profession in humanity, right? Because, we were taught by parents, by sisters, aunts, uncles, the neighbors. We were taught to farm. We were taught to do healing from the time humanity first recognized itself, right, as families. But where we are today is really where education has become a much more formalized process. And that hasn't really been that long. If you think about it, it's really just the past 100 or so years at the most that we have had formal teaching for everyone in this country. And when you think about it, it means that you have an awesome responsibility, not just in teaching everyday community skills, right? How to farm, how to do your skill set it's going to be your job, but really how to be citizens and good neighbors, how to think about the future, how to evolve and grow in a world that's growing very rapidly. And so I have to take my hat off, well, figuratively, but I have to make sure that I recognize this and say that this is an important cornerstone of what we do. Let me give you my pedigree in education really quickly. So I have been a part of and attended some of what have been called maybe some of the most difficult educational situations and some of the most profoundly excellent educational situations in the world. From growing up and going to Chicago public schools, where it was very different than some of the public schools today, to having taught, graduated from Stanford, been a professor of environmental studies at Dartmouth College, taught healthcare and asthma care to refugees in a Cambodian refugee camp in Thailand. So many extremes, but what I found through all of this is that what we do when we teach is to provide people with a backbone to live and to think through things. I want to add one other piece to that. My other pedigree in education comes from my mother, who was a school teacher in the Chicago Public Schools for over 25 years. And the first thing I did when I left NASA was to start a program called The Earth We Share. It was an international science camp that was there to teach critical thinking and problem solving skills. And this is back in 1994. We had students from all over the world to come together to solve problems like predict the hot public stocks of the year 2030. How many people can the earth hold? Design the world's perfect house. But the students, for me, were not the most important part of this. It was the teachers that we had an opportunity to give them a platform where they could learn and try different kinds of skills. So we had teachers from all around the world, and they had a chance to do this whole work about guiding. And we started this foundation to hold it called the Dorothy Jimison Foundation for Excellence. So it was named after my mother, again, who was a school teacher for 25 years in the Chicago Public Schools. She worked in the Robert Taylor homes. And I remember so many things about what she taught me, what she taught my brother and sister. And the foundation is named after what I think is the most profound thing that she taught us: excellence. Because she used to say, you know, this whole drive toward being number one is really foolish. When you think about it, everybody can't be number one, but everybody can be excellent. And the other piece of that is, just because you're number one in something does not mean you've reached your level of excellence, right? If your standard is just whether or not you're better than someone else, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. And there's always going to be someone better than us in something else. So it doesn't mean that we step back. No, it means that you continue to strive. And that whole idea of excellence is what underpins, I believe, everything that I know about being a National Board certified teacher. I want to add something onto something that Peggy said. She said that, you know, some people might not be celebrating because they may not have gotten certified, but I'm still celebrating everybody because they're teachers. They're actually doing the hard work, right, for society. People used to ask me all the time about teaching, and they'd say, you know, what do teachers do? And I thought, well, they do everything. If you were to give me 25-year-olds, I'd be happy if they didn't go home cut and bruised and bleeding. Let's longer learning their colors, right? These are things that teachers have skills that all of us don't have. But as you're becoming and looking at what these skills do, I want to make sure that we understand that skills that you have to imbue students with knowledge and information can do lots of different things, right? It can be used to teach them lessons and morals of courage and forgiveness, right? Understanding and strength. It can be applied to have them see the world through different lenses. And our task today in this world is really very important because we have a world that's interconnected in ways it was never interconnected before. That is our society. We have the possibility of doing things to this planet, to ourselves, that we didn't have before. People ask me, what did I think about when I was up in space? I remember looking down at the Earth and seeing this thin, shimmering layer of blue light that's our atmosphere, right? That supports our life form. And it was absolutely stunning. You can see some of the pictures from time to time. You see that thin layer. But it helped confirm something I always believed. You know, when people say save the Earth, they're mistaken. The Earth will be here. This planet that warms us and cools us and envelops us with all kinds of sights, sounds, smells, and vistas, it will be here, but we may not be. See, this is a problem, and where we have to understand that we're not integral to the Earth, but the Earth is integral to us. The Earth doesn't need us, we need the Earth. Yes, I work on space exploration. And I want to go to, I'm so jealous of the folks who just got named to possibly be crews to go to the moon with Artemis. I work on a project called 100 Year Starship. But the reality is that for generations to come, this is going to be our home, period. And so I'm going to go back to that whole project. I told you the first thing I started when I came out of NASA, which was called The Earth We Share in 1994. It was purposely named that because we share this planet. And what we do affects everyone. And so what you're teaching to, the task, is really difficult, right? Because you're teaching for the present, and you're teaching for 10 years from now, and you're teaching for 50 years from now, and you're forming the basis of everything. I don't want to throw too much on you. I'm sorry if I am. But it's the reality check. With an organization that works to make sure that we integrate all of what students have as they learn. I want to do one other caveat on this. So when we were putting together The Earth We Share, we wanted to look at science education. It was an international science camp. We wanted kids to understand that there's social, cultural issues involved with science development, that technology is a tool that we create with our knowledge. And tools that are created are based on people's individual hopes, dreams, thoughts, fears, and ambitions, right? They're not sitting in the sky waiting for us to find them. It's how we think through the world that makes a difference. So sometimes people say, let's ask the kids what they want to do. And I love that because we want to know what they want to do, and we're always asking questions. But we have to realize that children, even teenagers, look to adults and teachers not only to ask what they want, but to help be a guide. You know, I wrote down some notes. If you were to ask me as a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old what I wanted to do, I could tell you I wanted to touch that fire. I wanted to eat all the candy. I wanted to hit my sister and brother whenever they were doing stuff that I didn't like and they were older than me. And these are distinct possibilities of things that I did, right? And would want to do and continue to do. But I also wanted to do science projects. I wanted to protect my cats. I wanted to help my neighbors. I wanted to give my toys away. And we get to reinforce and help kids think through which one of those they choose and when do they choose what. And the dilemma that we have today is helping us understand how we include ethics into the skill set of mathematics and geometry, biology, learning history. All of those are important for the world going forward. And I know people sometimes don't like to talk about these things, but it's the reality. We're too interconnected not to pay attention to it. So when I look at all the things that teachers have to do to become board certified, I think we're starting to get in good shape because those are really important. These are just incredibly important. Again, we can have tools, but what do we do with the tools? The skills that you gain are tools. You know, you can use a certain combination of minerals to create a beautiful fireworks display or to propel a bullet. It really depends on who's involved. So that's the balance. That's my story. Again, I'm excited about it. I'm going to tell one last story. So I'm writing this, re-releasing a book that I wrote for 16-year-olds years ago. And it's called Find Where the Wind Goes. And it's going to be released sometime in February. And the reason I wrote it for 16-year-olds is because people were always asking me to sign something for their son or daughter and to tell their son or daughter to study hard and do what their parents and teachers told them. And they're writing these stories about me, and I'm thinking, I don't know that particular child. Now, I used to study and I did all those kind of things, but I also took risks and I also pushed hard on things and I pushed hard on adults, and I was fortunate enough to have teachers who helped me to channel that energy. So when I ask you to think about that, and the reason I told you about that is because we change who we are as teachers as we go along, sometimes we're just, helping people find facts. Sometimes we're guiding them along a path. Sometimes we're letting them go. Sometimes they're going to learn more things than we actually know on the subject, and that's okay. But what we really are guides, helping them to be able to constantly seek their excellence. And we do that by seeking our own excellence, because I'm going to end with a quote by James Baldwin. James Baldwin said, "Children rarely do what their parents or adults tell them to do, but they seldom fail to imitate them." And they couldn't do any better than to imitate board certified teachers. Thank you.